Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and very good morning or good evening to my beloved lecturer, Madam JBA2425C, and to all my fellow friends. So, as days go by days, we always wake up to the news that are sometimes we can consider it is a bad news or a good news, but for our cooperation, we always heard the bad news. As for example, this is the Enron cooperation which is involving fraud, and the next one is the Ponzi scheme which was led by Bernie Madoff in 2008, and it was trading all over the news. Last but not least is the Olympus Camera Company in Japan. We can say that most of the unethical behavior in a company is happening because of the lack of ethics in the employees itself. So, this is the figure of the most reported ethical lapse in 2019 by sector, which was leading by banking and finance, and last one is the public sector, which most of us will expect the public sector will have the highest issues of all sectors, but not. And the next figure is the most reported ethical lapse in 2019 by issue, which was led by behavior and culture. And the last one is the treatment of customers. So, we will discuss further about the issues and cases and steps on how to be an ethical cooperation. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And hi again. So, today I'm going to present to you all my article, which is about the very real challenge of unethical business practices. So, before that, my name is Anuar bin Md Ali, and I am from JBA2425C, and my matrix number is 2019542023. So, let's begin with the introduction. As we know, every company must have rules and regulations for their employee to follow. For what the rules and regulation? Basically, the rules and regulation is for their employee to be an ethical person. Okay, so Douglas MacArthur once said that rules are mostly made to be broken and are too often for the lazy to hide behind. So from what he said, it's basically about it is okay, it is fine for us to break the rules, for us to not follow the rules, but at some point it can lead to unethical behavior that are not healthy for an organization to have unethical behavior. So without further ado, let's get into the issues or a case that have been mentioned in my article. Okay, so as the first cases or issues, we will discuss about the Enron Corporation. So Enron Corporation went bankrupt on December 2, 2001. So why are they bankrupt? They bankrupt because of their leadership fooled their regulators with fake holdings and off-the-book accounting practices. So basically, let's say if they build a manufacturer or power plant, so when they gain profit from the manufacturer, they will state that profit in the financial statement, but when they face losses, they will put it off the book. They will not mention their losses in their financial statement, and it is wrong for a corporation to do so. So when the authorities find out, they found that this corporation, this Enron Corporation, have $591 million of losses and $628 million of debt. Okay, so for the second issue or cases is about the Bernie Madoff's fraudulent Ponzi scheme. So basically, Bernie Madoff is a guy, and the Ponzi scheme is the scam that created by this Bernie Madoff. It has happened back in 2008. Okay, so Bernie Madoff is an American financier who executed the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, and he deceived thousands of investors for at least 17 years. Don't you think that it is much year, it is long year, 17 years, and probably longer, probably longer, out of tens of billions of dollars. So basically he deceived a lot of people with a lot of money. So in the next slide, I will share with you guys about the anatomy of this Ponzi scheme. Okay, so as you can see, this is the figure of the anatomy of a Ponzi scheme, or we can call it the flow of how Ponzi scheme is happening. The first one is the scammer. The scammer, who else could it be? It is a Bernie Madoff that I was mentioned before. So he have two people below them. So each of them needs to pay $100 each. So the Bernie Madoff will gain $200 lah from these two investors, and these two investors will find another 4 investors below them, and these 4 will find another 8 investors, and then these 8 investors will find like another investors. So how they attract the customer, the investor? So they mentioned that this investment will give higher return and will not be found at any other market. Yeah, that is how they attract their customer or investor. Okay, so authorities find out about this scam is when this Ponzi scheme running out of investors. So the leader, the scammer, will run away and take off all the monies that have been invested. So from there, the investors that have been they report it to authorities, and authorities find about it. Okay, so let's proceed to the third case, which is the Olympus Corporation. Okay, so this Olympus Corporation was happened in 2011. So it was happened in Japan. They basically hire first foreign CEO, which is Michael Woodford, which exposed his own company $1.7 billion US fraud. So what was happened is Olympus did not show all of their transaction in every financial statement. $100 is missing. So this case is kind of related, kind of same with the Enron Corporation. So there are 3 people in this slide, which is the first one is Tsuyoshi Kikukawa, which is the CEO, and then Michael Woodford, which is the president and COO, and the Hisashi Mori, which is the vice president. So basically this Tsuyoshi Kikukawa has been hiding something from the financial statement, which is supported by the Hisashi Mori. So this Michael Woodford is feeling curious with the financial statement that has been stated, because he felt like there is something wrong with the financial statement. There is a lot of money that don't know where does it go at that moment, that has not been mentioned in the financial statement. So this Michael Woodford hired a lawyer to find out what is really happening with this financial statement, and he himself exposed the fraud of this Olympus Corporation in the court. So this Olympus Corporation is basically hiding $100 from their financial statement. As for the fourth case or issues is about double Irish with a Dutch sandwich. So the double Irish with a Dutch sandwich is a tax avoidance technique employed by certain large corporations. Okay, I didn't mention it in the slide, but an example of large corporation is basically Google, Apple, Amazon, something like the big company one that we obviously know it. Okay, so this double Irish with a Dutch sandwich is basically is about to avoid paying significant proportion of tax by shifting profits made in one country to the accounts of a subsidiary in another lower taxation designation. And the scheme involves sending profits first through one Irish company, then to a Dutch company, and finally to a second Irish company headquartered in a tax haven. Okay, for further understanding, I will show you guys the videos that explaining how Google receive their profit. So let's watch.
Now let's see how it works. You are a customer buying advertising from Google USA for $1,000. Google USA will pay $800 to Google Ireland Holding to manage and handle the sale, which means setting up the campaign, using the brands, and more. Google's Ireland Holding will pay €700 to Google Ireland for doing the job. Google Ireland will pay this €700 to Google Netherlands BV. And finally, according to Dutch law, this money will be paid back to Google's Holding Ireland. This is how €700 of initial profit has moved legally to Bermuda without Irish taxation and no other taxes.
Alright, so you guys have watched the video about the Irish company, whatnot, and how Google gained their profit. So this is what the law or rules and regulation that has been implied in the article. Okay, the first one is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. Okay, if you guys remember, the Enron Corporation was happened in 2001, and this act is developed after the Enron cases was happened. So this act is basically help the investor from fraudulent corporate financial reporting, because what happened during the Enron Corporation is they basically fraud in the financial reporting. So this act protect investors from fraudulent corporate financial reporting. So the second act is basically other nations like Australia, they also implied the Corporate Law Economic Reform Program, which is Audit Reform and Corporate Disclosure Act 2004, or we can call it as CLERP 9 in Australia. So these acts also protect investors from any fraudulent, from any wrongdoings that is happening in their corporation. Yeah. Okay, now we moved to the okay, now let's move on to the solutions that have been mentioned in the article. So the first one is they suggest to mix the hard law and soft law. Okay, so what is hard law and what is soft law? So hard law comes with regulatory framework, but it takes time to be effective and high in cost. But soft law is designed to encourage best practice, but it lacks adequate monitoring. Okay, so for example of hard law is basically the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in 2002 that I have mentioned before. So that is hard because of what? Because it is basically, it takes time to imply the law. Okay, as you can see, Enron case happened in 2001, but the law was developed and implied on 2002. So it takes time, and also it incurred high costs. The second one, the steps that has been suggested is do corporate social responsibilities, which is CSR, in every company. And some of people think that CSR and business ethics is a same thing, but it is not. It is not the same thing. Okay, so CSR is basically about the social, environment, human rights aspect of doing business. But business ethics is basically about integrity, trust, fairness, and honesty, and morality. So business ethics and CSR is basically a different things. So if a corporation wants to imply CSR, they cannot say that they already have business ethics in their self, but if they implied the CSR, corporate social responsibility, along with the business ethics, they can say that they already have an ethical value in themselves. Yes. Okay, in addition about business ethics is basically some companies take an effective way to ethical conduct. Okay, for instance, the Norwegian energy company named Statoil makes ethics and anti-corruption training as mandatory for every employee. So basically they make a compulsory for every employee to take a training so that there will be an ethical value in themselves. And last but not least, steps that has been mentioned in the article is one of the authorities said that ethical and governance framework should be shaped by accountants and financial specialists. So why did they say so? Because of accountants and financial specialists is one that has many experience and also more expertise in ethical and governance framework. And most of the accountants and financial specialists also, they have high values in ethicals. Alright, so for conclusion, I can conclude with 3 strategies that I have developed, which is the first one is company must make seminar and training compulsory. Compulsory for whom? Compulsory for all employees. Okay, as we know that preventing is better than cure. So if we prevent of unethical behavior to happen at the beginning by doing seminar and training, it will be easier for a company to have a healthy environment with ethical employees. Okay, so basically seminar and training will talk about the value of ethics that some employees might have. The second one is rules and regulations that will be monitored by authorities. So rules and regulations of the company, there will be an authorities that will monitor the rules and regulations. So if we see that our friend or our clique have a problem, have an unethical behavior, we can just directly go to the authorities that handle these rules and regulations thing, so that the authorities can take an action to our clique or our friend. And the last but not least is concerned with your surrounding. Okay, if we see that our friends are doing some unethical behavior, okay, it sometimes may happen because of they might have problems that can lead them to act unethically. So as a friends that concern, we can directly ask our friend to go to the authorities that can help, or counselor that can help them to act like normal back, because they might have something that disturb them to act unethically. So we can ask them to seek for help so that they will behave well after that. So as my point of view, seminar and training is really important. It's really important for a company to do, because it somehow can lead to a healthy environment in the corporation. So that's all from me. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.